Welcome to Inside the Vault, Enterprise Bank's podcast series where we talk about items of interest to the small business community. Today, I'm here talking with a longtime customer of the bank and a global company involved in the construction trade, and that's Bond Tool Company, right here headquartered in the North Hills of Pittsburgh, fairly close to the bank. With me today is John Bongiovanni, who is the current president of Bond Tool Company. John, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming and participating. So, always like the best story start at the beginning. So give us a little history of, let's talk about what Bond Tool is first, what you guys do, and we'll get into some history.
Sure. So Bond Tool Company, we're a manufacturer of construction tools and equipment, primarily for the trowel trades. What we produce is not necessarily for the DIY market. A lot of specialty niche type products. And by trowel trades, we refer to masonry, concrete, floor coverings, whether it's tile or carpet, drywall, stucco, plastering. And then from there, it'll get into some general construction, some landscape, hardscape type items, conventional type construction, asphalt. In total, we have about 8,000 different SKUs, and it ranges across all those trades.
But primarily, it's focused on hand tools, right?
Right. These are non-powered hand tools primarily.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you're third generation business owner of Bond Tools. So can you give us a little background on how the company got started and
Sure.
the first two generations?
Yeah. So we'll start with the first generation. My grandfather, Carl Bongiovanni, he and his brother got together to start a company called Masonry Specialty Company. My grandfather was working for the family business at the time, which was a beer, pop, ice distributor. And he was growing pretty sick and tired of it. His brother, older brother, 10 years older, was a mason, had a pretty successful masonry company. And he had a few inventions, some patents, but he didn't really have the time to devote towards developing those products, making them, et cetera, et cetera. So when my grandfather got out of the beer and pop business, he took over the manufacture, distribution, and marketing of those products. Good to have a brother with a lot of masons that he could sell it to, and also made a lot of introductions to a lot of different companies. So my grandfather really took that, built upon it, started introducing other products, other accessories to go along with that, and really developed it as like I said, masonry specialty was a good name because these are a lot of specialty products for the masonry industry.
So what year was this the company was started?
1958 is when we incorporated.
Wow.
So yeah.
60 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And then my father took over the company. He started working there in he graduated college in 1979, about 1980 or so. He was working full time. In the early 90s, he took over as president of the company. And somewhere in that range between 1980 to 1990, they morphed the Masonry Specialty Company into Bond Tool. At the time, we had already started getting into other markets. So in addition to masonry, there was concrete, plaster, et cetera. And he didn't think that Masonry Specialty was really fitting for the company name. So they turned it into Bond Tool Company. Nice name, Bond, Italian, good. So it fit really well. And then my father really grew the company quite a lot during his tenure. Built a couple different buildings, opened up a West Coast distribution center, grew the product catalog rather to where it is today for all intents and purposes. And he unfortunately had an untimely passing in January 2017. At that time, I had been working for 10 years as a full-time employee. Grew up working there as a not so full-time employee. Right. I was the vice president of sales and marketing. I think that was always our plan for me to take over at some point. But obviously it was fast forwarded quite a bit, got thrown into it. And, it's been, knock on wood, we've been continuing to grow. Right or wrong, I kind of try to remind myself, like, I'm running a company now that is bigger than the one my dad ever ran. So I have to keep that in perspective, and comes with its own set of challenges. But like I said, it's been continuing to grow and continuing to do well.
So has the company been in Gibsonia for the entire duration of its history? Or?
Most of it, at least my entire knowledge of it. But no, we our first building in Gibsonia was sometime in the mid to late 70s. I want to say like 77, 78. The 20 or so years before that, they were in Lower Borough and New Kensington.
That's where I live, actually.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just a garage that my grandfather rented out, like a detached garage that someone had. And he had some welding equipment, things like that in there. And then over time, went to a little bigger space. And then from there, the building that we still refer to as Building 1 on
I was going to say, you have pretty much a campus.
Right. Yep. So we have Building 1, which is our original one on this site. Building 2, which is the original part of that building plus the addition that was put onto it. Building 3, which is our main distribution center and offices now, and which we're looking at putting an addition on here in 2024 as well. So continuing to grow the campus.
Some pretty large buildings, because obviously you mentioned the number of SKUs you have and the level of inventory that you carry.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these are little products, which is nice, but, all total, I don't know how many square feet we would be under roof here in Pennsylvania. Probably with the addition, it's going to be 250,000 square feet, maybe with all in Nevada as well. So fair amount of square footage, yeah.
So obviously you grew up in the family business, but what was your educational background on that before you got involved?
Try to be a B student, get through as easy as I could. No, I went to, so I, obviously grew up in the area. I went to Hampton High School, one of the local high schools, good school. That was great. From there, I went on to college, 4-year economics degree from a liberal arts school called Denison University outside of Columbus, Ohio. And,
I understand you got to do some world traveling too, which kind of benefits the business, which we'll talk about.
Absolutely. And that was one thing I was saying. My dad used to always tell me, he's like, you go get your undergrad, I'll give you your MBA. And I spent a lot of time with him, whether it was in the boardroom, at the office, just sitting in on meetings, whether it was attending business trips with him, both domestically and internationally. So I didn't have much to contribute at the time, I feel like, but you were just kind of taking in just the conversation. And we like to talk about like the language of the business world, right?
Right.
And I got to be a part of that early on. So I got pretty fluent early. And then, now it's time to start making decisions based on what you learn. So,
right. So you ended up having to, take over the overall management of the business kind of abruptly in 2017. You have a good team though behind you. Who are some of your key people?
Yeah, no, we've got quite a few key people. Mona Kostowski, I mean, she's almost at 30 years, I want to say she's been there. Steve Swanson, he's been there on and off in different types of capacities for 15, 20 years. Glenn Golden is our CFO. He's approaching 20 years there. Sean Hellman, he's at almost 30 years. I want to say 28, 29 years. And then so many other people. Our customer service core, maybe they haven't been there as long, but 15 years at least for most of them. Some of them 20 years.
Yeah. What is the total headcount? How many employees do you have?
We've got about 75 FTEs.
Okay.
Now there's a few part-time people, a few different types of schedules with different folks, but it works out to 70 or 75 FTEs.
Okay. So you've got kind of a multi-tiered business model or distribution model. Can you talk a little bit about, you do some direct to customer, you use distributors, kind of how you get the product out?
Yeah, we so big majority of our business is going to go on a shelf somewhere. Some type of specialty construction supply yard, like a brick and block supply yard or a drywall supply house. Could be a landscape supplier. Locally, some of the names that come to mind would be like George Wilson's or Knickerbocker or Building Products. May not be the places that you shop every day as a homeowner or consumer, but if you're in the contracting business, these are names of companies you would go to pretty regularly. So those types of yards, we definitely are our core business. And then there's a few other, like you say, direct to consumer. There's a couple different relationships in how we do that. So we do have like a website. You can come onto our website, place an order, we'll ship it out, no big deal. But we also do a lot of back end for a lot of other companies. And this can be some of the big names, as well as companies you've never heard of, but Home Depot, Lowe's, MSC, Zorro, which is owned by Grainger. We'll do for each of these stores anywhere from, I'd say, like 60 to 100 orders a day for them. So if you're on HomeDepot.com, you find a Bond Tool item, it's not coming off of a Home Depot shelf. It's coming out of our warehouse. Drop ship directly to them. I mean, we don't.
But it gets you that exposure to the public.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, I mean, Home Depot does 100 orders a day with us. So, extrapolate that over the course of a year. I mean, there's a lot of boxes that go out the door.
You sell through Amazon?
We do with Amazon. We have a couple
Yeah.
different relationships, love-hate relationships with Amazon.
That's why I asked, because I've heard it.
Yeah, it's I don't know how familiar everyone is with how Amazon goes to business, but you've got a 1P relationship. So that's like they buy it every Monday. We ship it to their warehouse. We don't know who it goes to from there.
Right.
That's what we want. That's great. If Amazon doesn't sell it, wants to throw it in the dumpster, I don't care. They still have to pay for it.
Right.
Then you got FBA, Fulfilled by Amazon, which is what they're pushing a lot of their 1P partners towards. And essentially what that means is you rent Amazon space. The rental fee is very low unless it goes without turning after 30 or 60 days, and they kind of increase what your rent is, so you're incentivized to bring it back and not overstock them. And then they take a little commission on what you've sold. Or the third one, which they call 3P, or Fulfilled by Merchant, meaning
That's a drop shipping.
that's like a drop ship. Yeah. So you go on, you see it, okay, whatever, and then we ship it straight out to that person. Amazon makes their cut, and you do all the legwork. So obviously, from Amazon's point of view, there's they're incentivized to not stock up on the inventory, own the inventory, and have to deal with it. They want their suppliers to carry all that weight. So that's why I say love hate. I mean, it's still a big amount of volume, but we are seeing that dwindle as they become more difficult to do business with. But there's workarounds. When we have a customer, one in particular in Minnesota, every Monday they place their orders with us, and they handle a myriad of different relationships with Amazon, and they fit our business model a little better. We're not kind of changing what we do to cater to a specific customer. So they fall into a category of customer at that size. They get their pricing, their terms, their dating, and it's just business is normal for us.
Got it. So you mentioned website. So what's the website address for
Website, www.bontool.com. That's BONTOOL. So,
and is that a fully interactive site where customers can order?
Yep. So customer, you can check out as a guest. You can become a frequent user, whatever you want to call that, and have a login. You can track your orders. So particularly with our dealers, $1,000 would get them free shipping. They can build a shopping cart out there until they see that they've met their free freight minimum, and then submit it.
Gotcha.
But then they can also go in, if they owe money on past invoices, they can go in and just put a credit card through the website and pay a past invoice. They can track their orders. They can create like shopping lists, favorites, whatever you want to call them, where it's quick order here, put these in. So they have a number of different options on how they can interact with us on that website.
So I'm interested. You talked about catalogs, which used to be the way.
Yeah.
Is that still in this niche masonry type space? Is that still an important?
It's still important for sure. Especially at some of our dealers. I mean, there's always a catalog on the desk. It's like a reference book, and not just ours. I mean, however many different manufacturers' catalogs. And still even, our customer service or people in the inside sales, I mean, they're referencing their catalog quite a bit. But I think the difference is 20 years ago, we might have printed 150, 200,000 catalogs. I think this year we printed 40,000. So, I mean, it's quite a big difference in how many of these things we're printing. Why not? I mean, the internet, the information out there, you can change it dynamically. We change it daily. We got videos to support it. We got our SDSs or tech bulletins out there for the products. You can build on the layers. You can't put all that in a catalog.
Right. So I mentioned in the introduction here a few minutes ago that you guys are a global company, and we're going to talk a little bit about the international side of Bond Tool.
Yeah.
But domestically, you guys nationwide, what areas do you cover?
Yep, nationwide. So we, there's not a state we don't ship to every day. But out of Pennsylvania, we cover depending on inventory and things like that, you could ship to any different state. That's obviously the case. But we have a warehouse outside of Las Vegas, Henderson, Nevada, what we kind of define as the 13 Western states, Alaska, Hawaii, California, et cetera, over to Colorado, essentially. We'd prefer to ship out of that warehouse, just logistically. Cost of freight over the last...
When did you guys open a West Coast distribution?
2007, right before the housing collapse of 2008. We timed it perfectly. That business just tanked when we opened. So, but looking back, we never would have traded in that decision. It's been a wonderful utility for us. So that's been there for 20 years or whatever, and they'll cover that part of the market, the West Coast side of the market. And then we'll cover the other 37 states out of our Pittsburgh warehouse, or at least ideally. But no, that's what I'm saying. For us to ship to California out of Pittsburgh, when it's going LTL, if it's FedEx ground, it might be 5 days, but LTL, you're probably 7 days out. In our industry, it's been our experience, and I think most contractors could approve of this statement, but when they need it, they needed it yesterday. Yeah. So, shipping, to LA, 7 days out of Pittsburgh versus one day out of Nevada is a huge time saver. And I think we maybe wouldn't have some of that business out there if we didn't have something more readily available. Just, unfortunately, some of our competitors are more centrally located.
Yeah.
They're able to disperse from the central parts of the state. So they cut it, 3-4 days versus 7. But no, like I said, we worked around that. It helps alleviate some of our congestion in our warehouse. They have a little bit of different hours, 3-hour time zone change. So it's comforting to know when I go home at 5. Well, I don't go home at 5. When I go home at 8, when I go home in the evening, they still have a few more hours to go. And they're still packing and processing orders, and things are still going to be invoiced, following up the next day. So it gives us a little bigger window of shipping.
And, as a locally based company here, though, as I said, you guys are global. So tell me about the international markets. Which of those export markets you've developed, and import markets, because you get some product from overseas too.
Yeah. We like anyone, finished materials, more raw materials, sub assemblies. A lot of different parts, components coming from a lot of different countries. So we have product coming in from Austria, Germany, Slovenia, Italy, the UK, then also in Asia, whether it be Taiwan, China, Japan, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India. So, a number of different parts and components coming in from those places. But then we'll fabricate, we'll turn it around, and we export to quite a few different places too. So Canada and Mexico have been very strong markets for us traditionally. We do have 2 sales rep agencies in Canada that cover all the provinces. And we also have a salesperson who covers our Latin American market. He was in the industry before having to come to Pittsburgh for some different medical reasons for his children.
Yeah, I read that story. Can you just give us a little quick snapshot of that?
Yeah, so he, gentleman's name is Hugo Martinez, and he was here on an emergency medical visa. His son had some heart condition in which the valves in his heart were not growing. So his son was actually born here, and they had to basically do open heart surgeries early on, I don't know, it was every 6 months or maybe less, to replace the valves. He's a young, healthy boy. I want to say he's about 11 years old now. We wouldn't know it any differently, but he still has to come here to Pittsburgh at times. So the downside to the medical visa is you are unable to have any kind of employment. So he was able to transfer his visa from the medical visa to the H-1B visa. We hired him for about 3 years as an employee at that time. And then, unfortunately, it wasn't renewed. They're not oftentimes renewed after 3 years. He was working on getting his, green card, his permanent alien residency, and COVID hit, which put a damper on that, backlogged it about 2 years. But we're quite excited. February 22nd he's already been conditionally approved to become a U.S. employee. And February 22nd is his meeting with the consulate in Mexico City, where they should put the visa in his passport and all that kind of stuff. So we expect sometime here in the spring he'll be moving back to Pittsburgh and being full-time employed. Yeah. So we're looking forward to that.
But I understand that you offer some of your marketing materials in Spanish through him and different.
Yeah, he'll do some translations, things like that. Yeah. And you know what? Especially in our industry. There's a large Hispanic workforce. So even in the U.S., he has helped us communicate with some of our end users on technical support, things like that. You can put things into Google Translate, but like a commonly used tool is a bull float. When you go into Google Translate, it talks about like a floating bull. It does not talk about the tool. So it doesn't always, some of the lingo or terms, I guess, aren't exactly compatible with a Google Translate. So he's able to help navigate some of that for us.
Neat.
And then in Europe too, we've got quite a good opportunities there. We've partnered with a number of different companies in different parts of Europe. So in the UK in particular, and then one in Switzerland. And we've got a few other companies in Italy, France, etc. But some of these have actually licensed some of our IP. Yeah. So in Switzerland, we have a company called Bond Professional. We don't own any of it. They license some of the IP. They stock. They have exclusive territories over there. And we'll be making a trip over here in April. Yeah. Visit them in Switzerland and go to a concrete show in France. So we do get over there. And
you have a presence in India as well,
and as I say, in India too. Yeah. So that's another one where it's almost like a franchise model. We don't really call it that, but they license a lot of our IP. and they'll do some of their own fabrication and things like that too with our intellectual property that we've been able to kind of pass on to them.
Yeah.
So they were a wholly owned company up until COVID, actually, and at that time, it was kind of it's always been difficult to be a U.S. owner in India. It's just the culture is different, the reporting's a nightmare. It's had its own challenges. So, managing director, we've known him for many years. We actually had another company at one point that we owned, completely unrelated to Bond Tool, and he managed and directed that, and then also this new company for us. So. I just made him a deal. I said, "Do you want to buy this from me?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Absolutely." He had a young son still in university coming up and wanted to get him involved. So built out a little team. They do that. We still treat them as like a wholly owned company or a sister company. Very friendly relationship with them, and they continue to flourish and promote the products, and particularly in the decorative concrete world, which takes a little bit of education and training. So they've been promoting a lot of that type of product in India.
Yeah. So getting involved in the exporting side, I don't think a lot of business owners understand the resources that are available to help them make that jump.
Yeah.
And I know you guys have used a lot of those resources. Can you talk about a couple of those?
Yeah, here in the Pittsburgh area, Pittsburgh, Western Pennsylvania, whatever you want to call it. I mean, we have a lot of great universities that offer like small business development councils, and with that, they call it like bringing the world to Pittsburgh or bringing the world to PA, and they'll provide a lot of one-on-one type meetings. So if you're trying to get into a particular market, or even if you're in a market and looking to expand it, they'll bring in some people from, let's say, Germany, I don't know. And you can sit down, meet with them, tell them the challenges you're facing, what type of customers you're looking for, and give them a work order essentially to help you expand and grow in those markets. And then in addition to that, they'll offer a lot of classes, whether it's like EXIM financing, harmonized code reporting, how to create a commercial invoice. Yeah. Probably things I take for granted, just kind of having seen it forever.
Right.
But if you've never done this before, obviously there's some challenges. And I've even got some friends with some small little side businesses and things like that have had some random orders or needs, one in Europe, one in Canada. And they've kind of come to me and said, like, how do I do this? And I've basically said, just, like, here, step 1, 2, 3, give me all this documentation, fill this out for me. I'll take care of it. I'll get it all shipped out for you. We can do that. And, we're doing it every day. Yeah. So it's something, like I said, maybe I take a little bit for granted, but not difficult. I don't want to scare people away. Like, it's all this, like, really hard things to do. But like I said, it's a few steps. You go through them, and then the rest just kind of flows.
And there's actually, I always say grants are like the Easter Bunny.
Oh,
but
we love the grants.
Yeah, but that's one of the few areas in small business that grant money is available if you're looking to expand internationally, do trade shows. You guys have taken advantage of some of that.
Yeah, there's a number of grants available, and some of them I don't even know where we learned about them to start with, but. I think it's under a new name down, but the STEP grant is the one that has always been great. And I think it's like 50% of your travel expenses. And that could be like if you're doing a trade show, if you need translations, if you're going to hire a translator, airfare, hotels. I'm sure there's some limitations like Kinko first class or whatever, but but they that's up to $10,000, 50% of what you spent. And a lot of times, if we're doing a show overseas, I mean, $10,000 for a booth.
Yeah.
And then you got airfare, meals, hotels, staff, everything else that has to go with you. So we'll hit that pretty quick, and nothing better than, having half of the event paid for by the state.
Sure.
And then another thing that they've done too, and we've participated in, is they'll buy like a large exhibit area, maybe that holds 10 different companies. They'll get preferred rates because of how much square footage they're buying, and then they'll like basically sublease it out to you as a Pennsylvania company. And they'll have a big thing, Pennsylvania Exhibition Center, whatever. And they'll arrange the travel. You guys all stay at a hotel together, get the group discounts there. They'll have shuttles. Sometimes they'll hire a shuttle driver to take you to the hotel and back and forth.
Yeah.
We did that in Germany, and it was fantastic. I mean, they really helped us out.
Yeah. Well, by the way, congratulations are in order. For those viewers and listeners, Bond Tool has recently been nominated for the SBA Exporter of the Year program on a national basis. And that competition be coming up here in the next couple months. So
Brent Rondon, actually that's who introduced me to Hugo however many years ago as well. But he works at the University of Pittsburgh in their Small Business Development Council, Center of Entrepreneurship. I can't remember the exact name. But he reached out actually last year, and I said, I'm in the midst of a cyber crisis. We had a.
We're going to talk about that.
We'll talk about that. Okay, yeah. And I said, I don't want to add anything to my plate right now. So he reached out at the end of this year. I said, all right, I'm ready for it now, Brent. Let's give it a try. And he helped me a lot with putting the application together and different resources and the essays and everything. So I don't know too much about what the vetting process will be, but I do know it'll go to a council or some type of committee that will vote, and then from there it'll go to like a regional level, and then from there you can get to the national level. So fingers crossed. I told him it would just be cool to get past the first round.
Well, that would be cool for Western PA because it's not thought of as an exporting hotbed.
Right.
Crises we talked about. So obviously your first one was you had to take over the company relatively quickly when your dad passed away unexpectedly. COVID though, for you guys, my understanding was it wasn't necessarily as damaging as it was to a lot of different types of businesses.
Yeah, COVID brought a different level of challenges to us, which weren't all necessarily bad. Our bricks and mortar stores, that's made up the bulk of our business, their doors were shut. So we weren't seeing a lot of sales there, but everyone was going online. And, we were starting, like I said, to do more and more of this direct to consumer through. There's probably about 50 different websites we service, the Lowe's, Home Depot, Zoros, they're the big guys, but there's a few other ones, names you wouldn't know, Whole Nine Yards or Cardit or whatever these stores are. And as we were growing that out, we're used to orders that were putting multiple items in a box or on a skid and shipping it off. Now it was like one of these, two of these.
Yeah.
And all together, the volume was great, but it was broken up into a lot of separate shipments. So it changed us a little bit. Now, it kept us very busy during COVID. We were adjusting to some of this, and it definitely kept our doors open. We saw a great boom from it, honestly. Right. People sitting at home shopping online.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward to today, okay, we've got that business, plus we got our traditional businesses come back. So,
it helped you diversify.
Yeah, it helped us diversify a lot. And it's almost two different ways that we segment how we process those orders in our warehouse. And we do have a team that's dedicated to supporting the e-commerce side of things, whether it be the Amazon or the MSCs, whatever. What we kind of, when we're used to, we're somewhat traditional, so we pull orders on paper still. It might be 5-page order. We're pulling, might take someone an hour, hopefully not an hour, but half hour to pull an order. Now we were looking at, 100 orders where there might be some duplication of products. So we tried to come up with better systems on more efficiencies. We weren't going and just getting one item at a time, which we were kind of used to pulling one order at a time, but now we're pulling 20, 30 orders at a time because it's still less items that might be on an order otherwise. So yeah, during COVID, it changed some of the way we did things. Like you mentioned, though, it gave us a little shot in the arm. It gave us a nice little boost. It opened us up to some different markets that maybe we weren't as entrenched with. And, today we get the luxury of both.
Yeah. So came through COVID relatively well.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had an incident in the end of 2022, right?
Yeah. And I don't say this like toot my own horn or anything. And I'm not even saying that I did it like the way it was all supposed to be done or by the book. Yeah. But, take over. My dad passes away in 2017. Okay, get my feet wet. COVID comes. Yeah. Okay, look, that wasn't so bad. And then bad happened. So we had a ransomware attack. Our came through someone clicking on an email. We've determined that whatever, it doesn't matter. The servers were all on-prem at the time. We had some basic layers of backup and security, at least we thought. And it was timed. It was a timed thing. So we know, going through the logs that they had gotten into our servers maybe a week or so before they actually activated the virus. But by doing that, they were able to dissect what server backed up which one and what did what and which one communicated with the other one. And so they created the virus to make sure the backup was infected before the other one. And there was no backup at this point. So we started over. I mean, it was a reset. Think about it.
With 8,000 SKUs.
8,000 SKUs in 2 different warehouses. And then that doesn't include, our manufactured items. I mean, how many nuts and bolts? Right. So when we make an item, there might be 6 components into it. We call it a BOM, bill of materials. Every one of those items is inventoried. How many screws, how many washers, how many this, how many that. We're sitting there twiddling our thumbs. I mean, we lost visibility to all the BOMs. We lost visibility to all the components in our shop, all of our finished goods in both warehouses. through a number of different resources, whether it be like some of the information that was on our website, whether it be some information that was in a backup somewhere else, we started piecing it all back together. Essentially, I don't think we shipped for 2 or 3 weeks a single thing. And then about 6 weeks, we were kind of back to like, okay, let's start invoicing again. I think we've got that under control. But still, a lot of that history is lost. Some of the 2022 history, it's vanished. Today, we are like more than redundantly backed up.
That's important, because I don't think it's like one of those deals where you don't appreciate it, the risk mitigation, until it happens to you.
Honestly, I think I was pretty naive. I'm like, oh, we got this server and this server, and if this one goes down, we got this one that'll help it. But you never think about how, like, okay, well, once they're in here, they understand your infrastructure and framework on how all these things talk and communicate. It wasn't just like, oh, here, let's just throw this out there. This was like an engineered attack.
Yeah.
Should we have paid the ransom? I don't know.
Yeah.
If we do pay the ransom, are they going to release the files, or are they just going to ask for more money? Obviously, we talked to the FBI, and they said it's up to you guys what you want to do. Now, we're lucky. We don't really store any, personal data on anyone, credit cards, things like that. We don't keep any of that. So there wasn't any.
So it's more of an internal disruption.
It was a complete internal disruption.
Yeah.
Wasn't, if you're, a healthcare provider or a school or something like that, now you've got social security numbers and all this other stuff out there that, not too many people are happy about getting lost to the cyber criminal world. But for us, it was a little different. They even got into our phones. So we think they went through like our Outlook server. It's on its own server, the email. Downloaded the phone book, and there was recordings, and it would come up on my phone saying, Sean Hellman's calling. I go to answer it. Right. Hey, Sean. Oh, it's a recording from the cyber criminal saying I'm supposed to go onto this website and pay it.
Right. And
when I say they got a hold of our phones, I had to shut my phone off for like 2 days. I was getting like hundreds of calls a day from this cyber bot or whatever you want to call it. So it was a nightmare. But now today, so we're on the cloud. It's the Azure environment. It's backed up by some other cloud. So even if Microsoft were to go down, we might be down for a day in a worst case scenario, but probably even less than that. Our rebuilds are like 2 hours, and we obviously are using Enterprise's technology.
That's what I was going to say.
For that.
Out of an unfortunate circumstance, though, you kind of deepened a relationship with the bank and one of our holding companies or subsidiaries. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So, and I think the timing was pretty good, and for both of us, because I know that Chuck was just starting to get this technology group off the ground, up and running. And I don't know that we were necessarily the first client for this group, but we were a really good case study in worst case scenario. So they got to really rebuild us. And like I said, it's got redundant backups on top of redundant backups and firewalls, and the CrowdStrike is the one I'm thinking of what it's called, whatever that type of software is, which we didn't have a lot of that in place. We just had some cookie cutter things. This is really designed to like what Bondpool's needs are.
Right.
Comes with a fee, obviously, but I would pay this for 100 years and go through that again.
Right.
And then you were mentioning grants earlier, actually. So through Catalyst Connection, which is another local, primarily with manufacturers, they really helped us. There's a NIST certification, which is going to be required by anyone doing business with the government. And there's level 1, 2, or 3 certifications. And they knew we had a cyber attack. And when we were up and running, they said, why don't we work with you guys? It's free. It's just your time.
Right.
And they said, let's get you level 1 certified. And as we were going through that, it's a whole numbering thing, and it's weird. You start with like a minus score, and then you build up.
Right.
We were really close. We found out to being level 2. So we said, okay, well, let's just go for level 2. Why not?
Right.
And the people at Catalyst Connection, like, well, you guys aren't going to need that. That's for like people like selling missiles to the military. And we said, yeah, but we're so damn close. We might as well just do it. So we're like, like I said, we went above and beyond. So we're like NIST level 2 certified. And then Catalyst came to us too and said, hey, we might have some grant money for you guys available to help, for some of the fees that you guys are paying. So now we're going down that road too. And you said grants. I'm like, yeah, we're here for those. Like, we'll take it. Yeah. We pay enough in taxes. If we can get a little back, it sounds good to us.
So, got through that, back at all systems go.
Yeah.
What's the future of Bondpool look like?
Future. Hopefully a lot less headaches. I feel like I've accomplished a lot in my young CEO career. But there's a lot of pessimism around the next few years. Election years historically are bad in our industry. But we're not totally drinking that Kool-Aid.
So before I let you go, I want to talk about kind of one of your passions that was your dad's passion, which is,
Yeah.
and we see it all the time. I mean, I always see it more so. We have a lot of machine shops that can't find good machinists, but I'm assuming the masonry trade is the same way. So you guys are trying to make a difference in helping youth get into the trades. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So, all of it. I need welders. I need machine operators.
Yeah.
We got CNC equipment, all that kind of stuff too. And it's hard to find someone for those things. And then also masonry, concrete, carpenters, you name it. I mean, there's not a union hall out there that says they can't get enough workers right now,
Right.
Or non-union. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's impossible. And why? I don't 100% know. I think part of it has been this big push where it's like you got to go to a 4-year university or you're never gonna have a job.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not the case. That's not the case at all. So my dad was always very big advocator of the vocational trades. We were one of the founding members for, it used to be called VICA, and now it's Skills USA. They do a big competition. It's a really impressive group that they get together for maybe about 100 different disciplines, from bakers to beauty, hair, to masonry, to clockwork. I mean, you name it, jet engine repair. And they take the best of each state, so long as your school is willing and able to send you to it. So masonry, they'll have 45 or 40 competitors, and we were one of the original members on that committee. And it really just kind of helps bring out the opportunities within masonry. And a lot of these people that compete, I mean, they could go on any job site in the world and be one of the best masons there. If you're at this level, you really know what you're doing. So my dad was always involved in that. When he passed away, we wanted to do something. We didn't know what it was going to be. We thought a scholarship made a lot of sense, but we were like, my dad's not really going to want to just send a whole bunch of people to 4-year schools and stuff like that. I mean, not that's wrong, but it wasn't really his thing. So we decided that we were going to do scholarship towards any kind of vocational trade in the construction related industries. And that's been a little bit, it's been anywhere from architecture to welding, to equipment operator, construction management. Some are 2-year programs, some are 4-year programs. So we pay, it originally started, we were we'll do $1,000 a year for 3 years. We'll see how it goes. We'll get 1 or 2 people at a time. Great support from the community. A lot of people got behind it. We've doled out, I think, about $20,000 or $25,000 over the last 4 years. And we're pledged for about another $11,000 right now. Our applications just went out in the last few weeks. In April is when we'll choose. We'll probably pick 2 to 4, call it 3 new applicants in addition to the renewals. Like I said, for 3 years, it's been increased to $2,000 per student. So we've really touched a lot of different people. Yeah. And we'll have it's a nonprofit group. Pittsburgh North Optimists is our 501c3 that we kind of run this through. We do a golf outing in June. It's a lot of fun as well as very charitable. So people come willing to help us out, and we'll probably see 3 or 4 renewals, 3 or 4 new applicants, and progress them through the next few years until they get through their careers or their education anyway.
Neat. Well, final thought, which I ask all of our guests here on the podcast. What advice do you have for either aspiring entrepreneurs or existing business owners looking to grow, or maybe, look at international as an option for a market?
Yeah. One thing I've always said, you got to be willing to step out of your comfort zone, right? And for me, I like to think of myself as the idea guy. I'll spitball things all day long. Good, bad, indifferent, I don't know, but at least it might change the way someone thinks or the way someone looks at something. And you talk about international, try it. What's the worst that happens? You're out in order. I mean, even if you ship something and never get paid, okay, at least you tried it. I'm not saying gamble the whole house on it, but you've got to be willing to make some investments. And like I said, you don't have to gamble your life savings or anything like that, but you got to be willing to take chances. You can't be afraid of that. Yeah. They're not all going to be winners, but the idea is, one winner will make up for 3 or 4 losses, or things that didn't pan out, and know when to cut the cord on something that doesn't really work out as well.
Well, greatly appreciate your time. Yeah. Great story. Sounds like a great future for Blonde Tool. For those of you that have any questions or ideas for future episodes of Inside the Vault, you can email us at insidethevault@enterprisebankpgh.com. You can check us out in audio format on all the major podcast platforms and in video format on YouTube. Thank you for watching or listening.